Okay, welcome to CxXchange Success Hour. This is the last one of 2024. So excited to have you here. Today's topic is part of our December series on AI, and we are talking about innovative ways to use ChatGPT to empower your CS program. Super excited about David Brady, who will introduce himself in a minute. As soon as he shared with me what he was doing with this, with his approach to using ChatGPT for I thought it was a really great use for this project that really what did it do, David? Like 6x your revenue, your expansion is kind of crazy. So we're going to get into all of that. You're going to see it, but I'm excited to have you all here. Let's talk through it. David, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, David Brady, talking to you from behind the Cheddar Curtain in Wisconsin. I lead customer success for Forbes Advisor, um, which is a lead generation firm. Had a cool career traveling the world as a musician and have now ended up in customer success, which I'm loving. And surprisingly, if we ever have virtual coffee, I can tell you it's very close to working on cruise ships. Hey, Vin, that's who I am, and looking forward to our chat today.
Awesome. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen so we can get into the topic here. All right, and so who can tell me what this is? Is it Greek? Is it, what is it?
I would,
Any thoughts?
I would be impressed if anyone knew. I didn't know what it was.
All
It's
right.
formal logic.
All right. Excellent.
This is a profit function that was written about in management science, and it's used to help understand the profit maximization point. Which you're thinking to yourself, like, why would I possibly want?
Oh, you're on mute now. Did I
And why
make you
would I?
on mute? Sorry.
You did. Why would I need to know that? And isn't this session about AI? And why are we talking about profit?
Yes. But this is exactly what David had staring in him, in the face. He was this equation was staring him in the face, and this is what drove him over to ChatGPT. And so I guess what I wanted to say is if you had something incomprehensible that only economics PhDs would really understand, right? It doesn't need to be that scary anymore. That's what I'm pretty excited about. This is why I was like, you've got to come to Success Hour. So when you think about it, there's a scenario for news vendors, and we have a picture in the background of a news vendor from back in the 70s in New York. And if you think about it, they have all of these magazines and newspapers. And how many should they have of each on any given day? Right? And because you don't want to undersell, you don't want to oversell, you can't oversell. Once you're out, right? But if you also don't want to be held, with a big stack of things left over at the end of the day because, the news, no one buys yesterday's newspaper, right? And this is a small group that you're looking at in terms of, you can't use machine learning on it. So how do you solve an equation like that if you're not a PhD economist, right? So David, you want to kind of fill in the
Yeah,
difference?
so our business is really no different, and our business is a business of sending leads to people. And one of the ways in which we send leads to businesses is we buy them on an auction through a bidding process. And we have the similar questions. There's a cost to overbidding and there's a cost to underbidding. And this is the CSMs on my team have to be able to engage with data and engage in these types of thoughts. And so that helps us. Sorry, our
Yeah.
next part is the bidding process, which you can see. And we're not going to talk through the bidding process. Don't worry. It was shocking enough to show calculus in front of you, or I think it's calculus. I don't know. I majored in music. But this is our bidding process. What you need to understand is that our product that we're selling our leads customers give us a budget, like Rob, you spoke up. If you were one of our customers, Rob, you'd give us $500 and you'd say, David, send me leads for, you know, whatever it is up to $500. We go, we buy those leads, we sell them back to you, you spend $500 and we turn a profit. Our goal is to buy those leads at a small cost. Our goal is to send you as many leads as we can, Rob, because my CSMs are looking to upsell you at day 30 and 45 and get you to spend more money with us. And if we've done our job right, we've maximized profit, which is what our general manager cares about, which is maximizing profit. And this honestly, this is what any CS leader might be thinking about is how do we maximize profit at a good margin? The problem that we had going into this was that one, none, at least myself, I studied music and I worked in insurtech and other things that weren't necessarily this heady. I'm a naturally curious person. I subscribe to a lot of AI newsletters. And one newsletter I was subscribed to, which is Marginal Revolution, it's an economics newsletter. And Alex Tabrock, who was writing that post for that day, linked to this article, this magazine that you can go to. It's called Management Science, if you're a management science geek. And one of the things that I saw there was this article called Solving the Price Setting News Vendor Problem, which is how do you determine the correct price when you have an uncertain amount of demand? Now, my boss, who's an engineer, said, David, if you're going to try to solve this problem, you need to understand the news vendor model. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I see this word news vendor model and this thing that came to me in a blog post. And I'm talking to myself, well, this is cool. I opened up the article. I looked at it. I saw a lot of symbols. I said, these aren't musical symbols. I don't understand what these are. And so I went jumped right to the conclusion. I jumped right to the conclusion, and I found out that this paper is essentially solving a problem for people who are trying to figure out how much they need to spend to acquire something when they have a small data set. And if any of you have worked with business analysts or data analysts, they may always tell you if you're trying to prove causation or correlation, you need lots of data. And here was a model for us to use that help improve our operations with a small data set, which was super ideal for us.
And what's also interesting about this is most of us as CS leaders have small data sets, right? And so we've linked to this article in case there's some way in which a small data set might apply to you. But it depends on if the news vendor model applies to you and that sort of thing. But still, who knows? Maybe it's something that could help you as well, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking of like potential applications. Like if you're trying to figure out how many people, how many activities to the cost of having too many activities or too little activities, or the cost of filling enough office hour seats or not filling enough office hour seats. Like those are similar types of questions you might ask. So like, how do we move forward to solving this problem? Well, because I don't understand this paper, I asked ChatGPT to teach me the paper. And then after ChatGPT taught me the paper in simple terms, I had to start really simple and get complex. I asked it to how I might apply this paper. How could I apply this paper practically into my business? What inputs would I need? What would the output look like? How do I automate this in Salesforce? And we're going to get tactical in a bit. And the results of having gone through all this process are significant. I got a Salesforce spec out of it, which was super helpful. We haven't put this into Salesforce yet, but at least I have an asset that I can use to speak with my developers on our team. Also, more importantly for our business, we 6x our profit. So we were able to stabilize our profit margin from being in the negatives to being at a solid 40%. And we were able to increase profit from negative 1,800, which is never good, to 24,500 over 6 months. So this model really helped us improve our business simply by being curious and asking ChatGPT in this instance to kind of teach me this very complicated thing in a very simple, easy to understand way, and iteratively progress my understanding and iteratively develop this model. I think tactical is kind of like what we actually like steps we actually took would be the next thing,
Well, yeah. And so this is where this is actually what the Excel model or whatever Google Sheet model that you actually built that your team actually uses, right? Is that's what you see
Yeah.
as in the image here. Now,
It's
one thing too, though, you you actually do code. Like you make out like, oh, I only ever studied music. I don't know anything, but you do know how to code Python, right?
Yeah, a bit. I'm not great at it. I
Okay.
understand it.
So you tested this out using Python before to make certain that ChatGPT was accurate. What if, like me, I don't have Python on my laptop? What do you do if if it spits out a bunch of Python and I'm like, how do I use this? What did you?
Yeah, well, sometimes large like somebody models like ChatGPT push out programming, assuming that you're a programmer. I would just tell it that's not useful for me. Give me something I can put into Google Sheets. Give me an Excel file. And what's important is when you're working with the models is to tell them they're optimized for being the most helpful as possibly can. They're like the greatest enablers. And so if you don't want it to enable you to be an enabler in that way for you, you have to say, like, that's not helpful for me. What's helpful for me is if you give me a spreadsheet that I can put into Google Sheets, or give me a spreadsheet I can put into Excel. Um, and then it would output a spreadsheet.
All right.
In this instance, we I couldn't ask my team to go get a whole bunch of, to do this in Python. So I asked it to output a Google sheet.
And just we included literally every single prompt you would call it, or what David typed in um, along the way, um, so that
Right,
you
and
can
then I'll be done
really,
at 5:30 if you want to order it. What do you want to do? You guys are
Randall,
hungry? You can
hey
order now or
Randy,
wait. I'll be done. I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna, that's all right. So we included each thing so you can see that it's not it. David wasn't a rocket scientist in this, right? He didn't have to be. What he did was he said, I don't have a math background. Teach me this paper in the simplest possible way. He just put it in English, right? And he had a conversation so he could get through all of the different results from it. But we wanted you to see, and you can download this, but we wanted you to see that you can get into a conversation in order to then, one step at a time, get more and more information to apply it. It did take him 2.5 hours to do this, right? But in the end, he got the instructions on how to build out this model, right? And
Yes.
now it has 6x'd the revenue and taken them from negative to positive and stabilize the revenue that they have month over month that they're using, which has become like the bread and butter of their program, of what they're relying on in the company. It's the star of what they're doing, right?
Yeah, we're scaling this now across other business units. If any of you work in MarTech or in ad tech, you probably know that Google did some things, and so this is actually the thing that's keeping us afloat at the moment. It's in Yeah, where I'm actually quite happy with how this turned out.
Yeah. So that's kind of, the high level and the details. There's more things over in the resources. What sort of thoughts and questions come up? Has anybody else done something similar along these lines that they want to, share? I mean, this is really open season now for whatever you want to mention before we go to breakouts. Does this make sense in terms of what David did, or what questions do you have?
I have just a comment.
Mhm.
When you showed all those prompts and how long it took, the thing is, the more you do this, the better you get at it. You learn how to pretty quickly how to ask it what it needs to know to give you what you want. So that's actually kind of fun when it works. It usually works for me because I don't give it rocket science stuff, but yeah.
You,
Awesome. Have you tried doing something like this, Kathy?
Nothing involving symbols or numbers, no.
Okay,
I just talk to it. It just usually gives me what I need.
awesome.
That's in the future coming.
Cool. What other thoughts or comments we got from folks?
I would just say I haven't done anything similar, like exactly to what David was sharing, but I understand, like in some of the ways that I have used it, I definitely understand that idea of the more information that you can give it, the more specific information you can give it, then obviously the more pinpointed results you'll get. And rarely do you get everything that first time around. So it's like, yeah, it's a building process. So you start with one thing, and then you're like, you continue to adjust your instructions until you it's sort of like clay, right? You start with a big block, and then you continue to mold it with additional inputs. And sometimes you don't, it's like you think you put in the right input and you realize you don't get exactly what you want. So you course correct, and then you keep going until you kind of find, your end result is what you're looking for, which is obviously, I see there's 21 inputs that David had in this endeavor. So that's a good example of, continuing to add those inputs in until you finally kind of get to where you're the end result that you're hoping for.
Yeah, great. And what kinds of projects or things have you worked on using ChatGPT?
I mean, quite honestly, I mean, I've had it kind of adjust my resume a few times, but just like certain articles that I was looking to summarize and sort of bringing it down to a level where it's like, this is too complicated. I need it to be, a little bit more simplified, or I'm trying to remember some of the more additional specifics, but just definitely where, the initial input, I realized, oh, that's too generalized. I need to be more specific. I'm not getting where I need to be. But that's what's nice about it, that you can continue that conversation and continue to sort of maybe start broad and continue to bring it down to a more pinpointed area where you get where you need. And again, it's not always, it's a little bit of trial and error. But yeah, it works for a lot of different things for sure.
Yeah. Gary, you were writing something over in the chat. Is that something you can come off mute to share?
What can I tell you?
Well, you were saying that you used it to do some automation and to use some Google Sheets, JavaScript, HubSpot. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing there.
Well, this is a little bit more simple-minded than what David was doing. We had people who were doing things over and over again in HubSpot and Google Sheets, and the sort of package features of those two platforms didn't provide a way to do the automation. So I asked the chatbot, can I accomplish the next step of automation by writing JavaScript? And in both cases, it said yes. So I started asking, okay, how do I do this in JavaScript, which I hadn't touched in about 10 years. And it led me step by step through inserting JavaScript into both Google Sheets and HubSpot, and enabling sort of new features that didn't exist on those platforms.
Nice. Nice. And so then what did it enable your team to do then?
Mostly it's time savings, because people were doing, as I said, doing the same thing over and over again because the product didn't offer to automate what they were doing. And never got around to summarizing, how much time was being saved. But typically, the ops people were probably each saving 5 to 10 hours every week or so.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great.
Not to mention boredom and doing immense drudgery over and over again that you feel must be possible to automate.
And you were able to do that, though. That's great.
Yep.
And it was great, too, that you thought of what about JavaScript, right? And so another thing, too, is if you didn't know JavaScript 10 years ago, you can go into something like a ChatGPT, Perplexity, any of those different tools, right? And you can say, hey, I've got these two, these types of tasks. I want to automate them. They're in these two different areas. Is there something that, what ways might I be able to connect them? What ways might I be able to create a feed when there's no API, and see what comes back, right? And you
Yep.
start to think of some of those things. That's great.
And just in closing, I would say, while I found that the chatbots that I tried could not handle the overall programming project because it kept getting bigger and bigger, it was still very good to say, I need to do this specific thing. Show me an example of doing that in JavaScript. And that saved me tens of hours of reading documentation and experimenting to figure out how to do it myself.
Yep. Great. Any other thoughts or questions before we head out to,
Yeah,
you know,
David,
yeah.
I have a quick question. When you said that this, or or maybe Jen said it, that this worked for your team, and then other teams used it. How exactly did you go about, like, doing it? Are you doing it for them, the calculations for their specific metrics? Are they doing them? How do you ensure that it's being done correctly and that there's alignment? Because that can seem overwhelming from the outside, but I agree. I think ChatGPT is a fantastic tool for teaching. You just have to be patient and diligent, but I'd really like to know about how you kind of standardize that.
I took I took this output, which was the spreadsheet. The people on my team have some of the people on my team come from an engineering background, from like manufacturing and stuff like that. So there are some of the things that they understood, especially because they've been working with this system. So the enablement was simply, hey, going into this, our profit margins have been remarkably unstable. Here's what I'm doing. And because these are data people, I'm having to say, here's my backup for this. And then actually I did what I did. I let them do what I didn't let them do. They did, because they are empowered to do so, what I did with the AI, which is they asked a lot of questions of me and saying, how did you come up with that formula? Where is the source for that formula? What caused you to do this? What about this? And what ended up happening is we ended up iterating from what that output we had from ChatGPT to account for how our business worked. And so because the team felt like they were part of the formulating process of it, they were involved in it, the adoption of it was a lot easier.
That's change management for you, right? You know, involve your team so that they buy into it and they're on board. And Kathy, did you
Everyone
have?
wants to play. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was like, everyone wants to be in the jam. Everyone wants to play. So you give everyone a
Yeah.
chance to have a solo. They feel better about it.
Absolutely. All right, Kathy.
I was just going to say, I use ChatGPT a lot for filtering things because I have a problem making up my mind about stuff. So if I say, of these like 100 top skills for CS that you just showed me, which are the most relevant right now? Give me the top 10, because I can't make my resume 500 pages long. So and it's able to sort through all this stuff that I can't do on any kind of a quick basis and tell me where to focus. And I'm like, okay, this is great, moving on. So I love it for stuff like that.
And like Trevor was saying in the chat, whether you're a job seeker and you're looking to do research on a company or a market, their competitors, that sort of thing, or if you're in a CS role and you need to look at what's the latest information, if it's a public company, there's 1099s. If it's a startup, there's other resources on the internet that it can analyze, in terms of what basically like investor websites and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that you can look at. We're going to go to breakout rooms. I just want to remind you. So for the questions, just want you thinking about, like, is there like a simple tool or model that you need or your team might need? Or what are some more creative ways you can use ChatGPT? So that it's not just giving you all the clues to Wordle or something, right? Never mind. Just joking. So not that I've ever done that myself, no. So any And we good? I can set you up to go out to, you have the links out from the chat? You ready to go to some breakout rooms? All right, off we go. How'd it go? Yeah, good. Seemed like everyone was chatting. Felt a lot of FOMO.
Percy's sister is a lucky sister.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
What makes her so lucky, Percy? I mean, other than you're such a charming, lovely fellow.
Yeah. See what stays what was said in our group is supposed to stay in our group.
Oh
No,
yeah?
now I was just talking to him about the world of AI agents and how that's really the next step here.
Yes.
And how I'm just diving headfirst and I want to, it's like learning a new language for me. And so I want to, just like as if I was learning a new language, I want to be immersing myself in it. And so I was talking to my sister about, she owns a dental practice in Atlanta and a lot of inefficient processes and so on. And they don't have really a view of their customer and like patient retention and so on. And so I was like, how can I help her and also discover, dive into this passion about AI agents that I have. And so I decided to put an AI agent that's going to basically measure customer sentiment and it's going to do competitive analysis. So it's going to look at what her patients are saying about them, gather feedback and so on. It's going to look at other clinics in the industry and assess them and give them a score. And it's going to basically do a competitive analysis for her. And then it's going to give her insights and recommendations on what are things that she can do, to beat her competition. And so it's basically an agentic flow that is being put together, and there are agents that are going to be analyzing different steps of this flow. And so I'm doing this as a side project to then, just get me very deep into this world. And the deeper I'm into this, the more value I can bring into my job. So that's what we're talking about.
That is, I need to know what you're doing January 14th and if you can come back, because that is exactly what I wanted to discuss in January was agentic AI and how we can start to dig into that and use that. So you don't have to answer me right here now unless you want to, but yeah, that's exactly where I think I was just writing about this. Somebody was asking me where I see things going in 2025. And I said exactly that. Agentic AI is, I think, what's going to be the buzzword. I think that's what everyone's going to be learning about and thinking about. And so I put this link, I don't know if anybody saw this, but I put this link that I was hoping that I'd get feedback. And I asked in my post, is anybody thinking about agentic AI? And I had mostly people who said that they're doing one-offs. And so, please respond to this post, but also, let me know, Percy, if you want to talk about agentic AI in January.
Okay.
Thinking.
Somebody asked, I'll get back to you on that. Somebody asked how I got started. YouTube, watching YouTube videos. And then I said, well, okay, I'm a learning by doing person. And so I went on upwork.com. There's tons of engineers, people from all over different countries that will teach you or do projects with you and so on. And so I just put a post out and said, hey, I want to do a kind of project, but I also want someone to teach me along the way. And I had probably like 30 responses. So I signed up with someone at a pretty cheap rate and we're doing this together, and that's how I'm learning. So
wow. Very cool.
I didn't take a course or anything. I'm a learning by doing person. I gotta be in it and do a project. And so that's how I'm learning it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What other things were you discussing in the breakout rooms? What kinds of things came up? It doesn't have to be agentic AI. What kinds of insights did you share? Was there something that you're
So,
like, ooh, I want to try that? Yeah, Chetna?
yeah, I can talk about group 3. So
Yeah.
most of us are looking for new role, and we had Eric Chang. I think he just dropped.
Mhm. Yeah,
He
he just
was
entered.
he is a part of like a cybersecurity firm that does not let
Mhm.
him actually use Gen AI. So
Mhm.
those are the two things. Like when you're actually not on the job, so how do you upskill yourself in Gen AI? And other thing is when you're actually on the job, but your job role does not let you use the Gen AI. So how do you kind of tackle the FOMO? So we kind of pivoted towards the topic of what are the certifications or how do we upskill ourselves? So that's why we were kind of sharing the links to different certifications. So I did a couple of certification from Oracle, and I was just sharing it with the team. And yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, but you didn't put it in the notes here. Maybe
Oh,
you
is
can add it into
yeah,
the
I'll just
chat or
add the sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe you can add it into the chat over in Slack or
sure,
something like
sure.
that.
Yeah, I
Because
will
that,
do that. Yeah. And
yeah.
then I think Kathy was mentioning how she uh uses GPT. Kathy, would you just share? Like you mentioned something about your tone, right, being used in the
Thank you, because I was like, what? I was talking about how I can ask GPT to rewrite something that I didn't write. I pulled out of somewhere, and I can ask it to use my tone of voice or my phrasing or things like that. It can do that, and it's pretty impressive. I don't use things like that, but I can imagine lots of less scrupulous people doing that and passing off the stuff as their own. And I don't know if there's a way to like find out if something you're reading is generated or an actual person.
Mhm.
Ways to do that, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends upon if it's a general idea or if it's somebody else's original thought, and then you're trying to pass it off as your original thought. I think that just depends. There are, some new thoughts out there, and then there are some that are like anybody could say it, but I want to say it in my voice, and I like, the summary of it. So that could be it depends on how much you really feel like you're, stealing somebody's, stuff.
Mhm.
Exactly.
But the really good part about our group is when we talked about food truck tech.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
That's Eric. Yeah. Eric
okay,
is working
nice.
on proof of tech. Yeah.
All right. And Trevor, you have in the chat some things that you're talking about in your group?
Yeah, we've used it for various things. So like for me, for job seekers and stuff, like I mentioned earlier, market analysis, what the company that you're looking at does, what their competitors do, things like that. But also, I think it was Jordan who brought up one thing that I don't think he said he had done it yet, but he was thinking about doing it, which was breaking down like complex technical documentation. Obviously, some of the other things that we've talked about, like Excel formulas and such as well. And then even Gary said that he's about to be a multimillionaire because he's using it to help him with his options trading.
Ah, nice.
So things like that. And then I brought up, and others brought up examples of just like companies who are taking it further than just a chatbot and doing it for all sorts of things. Like some of the ones that I mentioned is like lead generation or education and whatnot.
Great. Great. That's awesome. Leslie, did you want to share what you just put in the chat here?
Sure. We were just talking about, again, just another way to use AI, just to use it for templates, so for standard milestones that everybody encounters, right? So customer onboarding, different elements about renewals, or even difficult messages like churn or outages or whatever it might be. So you could use it to create like a library. And again, these are templates that are meant to be personalized. So obviously we don't want them to be cookie cutter, but we also, it's so often that you have a team that you've got like 5 people on the team doing the same thing in 5 different ways, and everybody recreating the wheel. So creating a library of these templates will save everybody time, provide standardization across the team, make sure that you're covering the core pieces that need to be covered for different, again, different milestones. And again, that can be saved for, just making life easier for the team overall.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you almost can create sort of a Mad Libs style where you can
Yeah.
fill in
Yeah.
things, right?
Enter customer name here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then actually too, once you have templates like that, that then leads you to an opportunity for automation sometimes. It depends on the scenario. But if you can create a template, you probably can also, in some cases, create automation around it. Because if you're literally entering in certain variables that are found in other databases and that sort of thing, that's a big clue that you should be able to do that. That's something too that when I show, like when you're building out your customer journey and you're showing kind of what the source is, and if you're, creating, a handwritten email, like does it need to be, a one-off each time? Does it have an opportunity to be a template? If it's a template, does it have an opportunity to be automated, right? And so there's different things like that that can help you learn how you can save time for your team. And don't forget, just like what we were talking about last week, is part of what you want to do is understand how much time it was taking, how regular it is. Think about these frameworks that we were learning about last week, right? And then also that gives you a guide to how you can measure how much time you've saved. And from that, you can then look at how much money you've saved. So we will have those resources up on our resource page on our website, as well as on the video on YouTube. So if you missed it last week, be sure to go back and take a look at that, because you always want to be sure that you're getting credit for anything that you're saving or anything that you're generating, whether it's revenue or time or something like that. All right. Anything else before we take off for the holidays and we don't join back up until January 14th?
I saw someone mention in one of the groups about
Mhm.
Notebook, the Google Notebook LLM, where you
Oh,
can
right.
generate a podcast. I'm just wondering if anyone has done it yet.
I know some people have taken their resume and uploaded it to then hear, like, what is that resume telling someone about you?
Yes.
So
Oh,
that's
interesting.
a great use for it. I also know someone took a blog post and then created a short little podcast sort of thing. I didn't love that as much. Just the way that it sounded, just sounded like these two people sort of doing consultant speak. But other than that,
I used it
yeah.
for actually when I was onboarding for my new
Oh.
job. There's a lot of documentation, and it's like, what the heck is this product, or what is this offering? It's like, yeah, look at through this slide deck of 150 pages or whatever. I uploaded the slide decks, and it provided a summary in this normal language for me to understand. And so I actually used it several times when I was onboarding, just trying to understand what is this, what are they talking about in this documentation? Because the documentation was rather technical, but the podcast was kind of in a conversational language. So
Right.
that was useful from that perspective.
I
And
love
also, I guess
that.
if you don't have formal onboarding, you could use it to make it maybe a little more personable, especially if you're a remote company.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I tried that, giving with the job description and asked
Uh-huh.
it to generate a interview and how should somebody answer. So it actually did a good job highlighting what points need to be answered and articulated based on the job description and the resume.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So you uploaded the job description and uploaded your resume
Yeah.
and then had it do sort of an interview
Yeah, I asked it
style.
to focus on the basically the experience mentioned in the resume and the skills required and the work qualifications, and then come up with a dialogue on how should somebody answer, give 5 questions. So it generated a good 18 minutes conversation.
Nice. Good.
I gotta fill my LinkedIn profile and, ask it who this person is. And if it explodes, then I'll know I've got a problem. So.
Yeah. If it doesn't ring true to you, then you'll be like, maybe I need to update this in some way.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I really had so much FOMO as I was seeing the conversation go out in the breakout rooms. I hope that you enjoyed those. Thanks for staying late and continuing the conversation. I hope that everyone has a fantastic holiday, a nice break, and look forward to seeing everyone in the new year. We will be just going to a monthly series for Success Hour, because when Voice Vanguard comes back and has a new name, it will also be monthly. And so we'll be doing some things to help people develop their brand. We're going to have something at the end of January around that for branding, as well as developing your voice on LinkedIn and things like that, developing your professional voice. We have our regular onboarding sessions each month, and that's going to be a little more of a friendly chat, and also ways to learn more about the programs. And then we also have monthly book clubs. So we have a lot of different things. We still also have the collaboration groups going on. So lots of different ways to get involved, and we didn't want to overwhelm you. So we're going to go to once a month for Success Hour, and just really enjoy seeing everybody here. So I'll see you in the community, in the Slack community. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
See
you.
Everybody.
you next
Bye.
week. All right.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.